What's up, everybody? Z3KO Trinity here. I want to set up the mood a little bit. There we go. Welcome back to a third and final week of the Horror Monster Classic Week. I know I fucked up the name, but who cares? Today we got some really good stuff for you guys. Jason, of course, here. I don't know if you can see him very well, but he's got a few goodies in his thing. Chucky right here, he's just kind of chilling here. He's got my Gryffindor hat, represent, for Harry Potter. But we're going to kick things off with a little interesting trivia for you guys. Now get this. Vampires. Vampires are the very first horror monsters created. The first novel had came out in 1765. It was titled The Castle of Otranto. The Castle of Otranto. I guess that's how you pronounce it. It was written by Horace Walpole. And I think that was actually kind of interesting because I was sitting here thinking, I wonder what the very first classic horror monster was. So I did some research, and vampires are it. That was the first novel ever written about horror or vampire monsters, anything. Which I find very interesting. And here is another interesting fact. The very first horror monster to make it on the big screen is Phantoms. Phantoms first appeared in a silent black and white film called Le Manoir du Diable, also known as the Haunted Castle or House of the Devil. Now, I think that's kind of weird how the very first horror book was about vampires, but the very first horror movie was about phantoms. And if you don't know what a phantom is, phantoms are the same thing as ghosts, but they're a little bit more towards the living side. Like ghosts are plain dead. They've done crossed over. They're just a complete different thing. But phantoms, however, are close to being both a ghost and living. And I think that is really interesting. And also, there's another term out there called phantasm, which is also the name of a movie series, which I had seen at Walmart. They had all 5 of the Phantasm movies, and I want to know, are they worth getting? Because I was actually going to buy the Phantasm movies. So, have you guys seen that movie series? Hello, Graham. Hello, Isaac. Hello, El Manuel. Cassie Keller. What's up? Mr. Spooks, thanks for joining. Goosebumps represent! Yes, they are worth it. Okay, because I found a really good deal on them. They had all 5 Phantasm movies for just $20. So I didn't get them today, but I was wondering if they were actually good. Phantasm. What phantasm is a figment of imagination. That's according to the dictionary word for phantasm. Phantasm is a image of an apparition. Like you think you see something in the corner of your room, but really there's nothing there. It was all in your mind. Whereas a phantom is an actual being that exists right there. Like if you think you see someone in the corner of your room and there actually is a thing in the corner of your room, that's a phantom. And the reason why I'm bringing up phantoms... Oh wait, I got some more info for you guys. Let's see. The Le Manoir du Diablo, blah 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 blah, Zorro, or the Haunted Castle, was written in 1889. That's when the movie first came out. And I swore that I wrote down the name of the person that wrote it, but I guess I didn't. But they first, when horror first began, they originated as Gothic films. Gothic films since grew to become horror films, so I think that that was pretty interesting as well. But they've grown from the classic monsters into the werewolves, mummies, and so on that we know. But since we're talking about phantoms and ghosts, do you guys consider ghosts and phantoms as a classic horror movie monster? Or do you feel like ghosts, demons, and phantoms should be categorized as something completely different? I see a lot about the Mummy. I just got done watching the new Mummy movie. What Mummy movie? Tom Cruise. Oh, yeah, we get it. Yes, yes, and yes. Classic. Okay. Now, I've already talked about the difference between a ghost and a phantom. It's the same as a ghost. Yeah, we get it. Phantom of the Opera. Y'all heard of this little number right here? Well, don't bother wasting your time watching this movie. This is the Claude Rains Phantom of the Opera, written in 1945, I believe? 43. 1943. Show you what it looks like out of the thing. Now, there are much, much better versions of the Phantom of the Opera. Much better versions. But I do believe that this movie was quite boring. It was very long, very dragged out, especially the scene where he's trying to cut the chandelier down while all the people are performing that play. And I was just sitting here like, I don't feel like it needed to be dragged out, you know? So, I just didn't care for this movie at all. I thought it was boring as can be. I did like the actor, however, that played the Phantom, and I do like the story. So, this version I do not like, but I'm going to find a better Phantom of the Opera, because I believe that there's a better version of that movie out there. So, if you have not seen the Claude Rains Phantom of the Opera, don't really waste your time on that one. Just like Carrie, a little bucket of blood. I don't watch really old movies like that. Classics are. But yeah, that's my very quick review of this movie. The part that I did like, however, I did like when they were like actually underground and he was playing the piano for her and she like ripped the mask off of him and you got to see the burnt part where the acid had hit him. I did like that scene. But as far as that, like, I really didn't care for this movie whatsoever. But that Phantom of the Opera was actually written in 1909 by a French guy. I can't remember his name now. But they are saying that Phantom of the Opera is one of the first classic horror monsters because it was one of the first to have so many remasters and remakes. They've done plays on Phantom of the Opera. They've done like several different movies of Phantom of the Opera. So, do you guys feel like Phantom of the Opera, the story itself, is a true cult classic that will withstand the tests of time? Because I do believe so. Like I said, if I find a really good movie version of Phantom of the Opera, then I'll definitely watch that one. But you guys have said that you do consider ghosts and phantoms as a horror classic monster. What do you guys feel about humans? Us. Normal people. Do you feel Like, you could catalog normal people as monsters. Let me see what you guys are saying. Oh yeah, Wolf Cop 2 is coming out. Nice, I want to see Wolf Cop 2 actually. Watch the original Silent Lon Chaney from 1925. Yeah, I ordered it to get it tomorrow. People are monsters. Mr. Manuel. El Manuel is a monster, yes. I personally feel like not all people could be classified as monsters, and we'll get to that here in a very quick second. But for some of the examples of humans being monsters, like the Phantom of the Opera, he started out as a normal human, and according to this movie, he didn't really die or anything like that. He had his work stolen for him, which drove him mad enough to murder. And then he wanted to get his own way, which drove him even more insane to become the Phantom of this. I keep wanting to say auditorium, the Goosebumps book, but it's opera. But like, is he really considered a monster? Because he was a normal human being until his work was stolen from underneath him and was getting ready to be sold. The Invisible Man. The Invisible Man. Very misunderstood. He, was a scientist. He did tests and turned himself into invisible. And he's been searching for a cure ever since, and it drove him crazy. So, does that really make him a monster? That's a given. He is invisible. And Dr. Frankenstein, which of course Dr. Frankenstein I would count as a monster because he was straight up just insane, determined, and he was just out of his mind. I feel like he was definitely considered a monster. But I don't know, some humans that are driven into doing things. I don't know if I could consider them a classic horror monster, though. Because there are humans who are just pure evil. Now, I have come up with a list of the top 10 humans I consider as classic horror monsters. Number 10, and you guys can agree, you can disagree, however you want, but let me know in the comment section below, what you think if you're not watching this live. El Manuel says, I had Invisible Man, the TV show. Don't know what I've done with it. It's invisible. You can't see it. It's all about John Cena. Number 10 goes to the parents in the movie Dolls. Now, the movie Dolls, the dolls come alive, and yes, they kill people. But they don't harm anyone unless they were causing harm to them, the people that created them, or that little girl. And when I watched the movie, the parents were so very abusive to the little girl, both mentally, physically, everything. So I consider the parents of the movie Dolls as true monsters. Number 9, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Dr. Jekyll is a normal human scientist who, basically, like every other scientist, got too caught up in his work, created a serum, created an idea, and it turned him into a monster. But, and here's a big but, a big badooski. Some could argue that Dr. Jekyll is not a monster at all. See, it's Mr. Hyde, his other personality, that's the monster. So, does that technically make Dr. Jekyll a monster to you guys? Number 8, the Dutch businessman from Hostel. You've got to be a monster to open up a business where you kidnap people, sell them to these people who want to torture them, who want to kill these people in the most grotesque, the most poetic, however they want. They have access to any tool. They have access to anything anything they want, that they can torture people however they want. So I consider the owner of that business, which in the movie he was just referred to as the Dutch businessman. I've tried looking it up to see if he had an actual name, but no, it even has it listed as the casting as the Dutch businessman. So I consider that as a horror monster. Number 7 goes to Luke Lerner from Better Watch Out. Now that kid is royally fudged up in the head. If you've never seen Better Watch Out, it's a Christmas movie kind of similar to Home Alone, where this kid and his babysitter are at home. It's almost Christmas, and the house gets broken into, but it has a big plot twist, and it's royally screwed up. Oh, if you've not seen any of these movies, that's fine. Why you be talking about me, boy? But number 6 goes to Esther, or Ether. I think it's Esther. I don't know. Esther from The Orphan. Now, if you've ever seen the movie The Orphan, I don't even need to explain why I consider her as a classic horror monster. And I kind of feel like they could do another movie, but I guess the big reveal of the plot twist kind of kills the whole story, really, I guess you could say. But I feel as though she could become a classic horror monster, simply because of her mentality. And I'm not going to give it away in case if someone has not seen The Orphan. I'm not going to give away no big plot twist or nothing. But once you see the movie and think about her mentality, I would consider her a classic monster. Number 5 goes to Leatherface. Leatherface is a human, and I was trying to think of like Freddy. Yeah, see, I was thinking of Freddy and Jason, but both are supernatural. They're not truly human. And you could say, oh, well, they were once human, but they really didn't start getting bad until they were supernatural. But Leatherface was straight up human, straight up messed up in the mind. He killed people, wore people's skin as masks, everything like that. So, yes, I am categorizing him as a classic horror monster. Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs, number 4. Buffalo Bill is definitely in the top 5 because he is royally messed up in the head. He's one of the most scariest, iconic horror movie characters that everyone knows, and I would say love, but that'd be a little weird. But yes, he is definitely considered a horror classic monster. Number 3 goes to the blind man in Don't Breathe. And the reason why I give it to him, yes, you could say that he was just defending himself, but is he really just defending himself? Think about his actions all the way through the movie, the preparations that he has done, and all the way to the plot twist about the woman in his basement. That's all I'm going to reveal to that. But that, I would consider him a monster. And that movie is so good that I would definitely consider it a classic. Number 2 goes to Joseph from the movie Creep. Joseph is definitely one of my top favorite human/monsters. And the reason why I consider him a monster is because of his wicked personality. He doesn't have like a split personality. He doesn't have anything like that. He's just a messed up individual who creates his own kind of character, and at the end of the movie you reveal that every other, like, he's done that several hundred times. Slenderman was not a real monster. Well, not a real human, I mean. Did you say the air conditioner is a human? The air conditioner in the Brave Little Toaster is a classic monster. That was number 2. Number 1. What could my number 1 human monster be? Number 1 goes to Miss Trunchbull from Matilda. Yes. How would you be like, Matilda is not a horror movie. If you watch what that principal or teacher, whichever, I can't remember because it's been years since I watched it, If you remember Miss Trunchbull from Matilda, that is a monster. And of course you would think of Edward from Twilight, El Manuel. What is up, Olsen? Oh, life. In a surprising, with a little lemon twist. Yes, Miss Trunchbull is a monster. She really is. She loves to torture children. And she does it in the most sick, sadistic way possible. Through physical pain. She even had a timeout, like, mummification thing that had spikes. Like, she is a royally bad monster. So yeah, that's my #1 horror classic monster. If I missed anyone at all, please comment below and let me know. Mental as well. Yes, especially what she did to the chubby boy with the cake. Enough said. Alright, got a question for you guys. Would you rather be invisible the rest of your life? Or would you rather be disfigured and be seen the rest of your life? I mean, badly disfigured to where you just look like a monster, like the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Would you rather be completely invisible the rest of your life and not seen by anyone, or be this deformed looking hunchback person and be able to be seen everywhere you go? What do you guys think? You could think that being invisible would be like a really lonely decision, and a lot of people I'm expecting to be all like, deformed and shown, but being invisible does have a lot of perks, actually. So, I don't know. If it was me and I had to make a decision, why does it say that my battery is getting low? I felt my... Oh, it unplugged itself. There it goes. That makes more sense. I would probably choose being invisible. I don't know. Like, if I was the other option, I would probably feel like I should shut myself in, and I would want to be invisible. Naked, well, anytime I want. Invisible. No, 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 I'm good. Levi says, I like the movie Invisible. Levi's like that little 5-year-old in the candy shop. Which would you rather be? Invisible? Or would you rather be deformed? I like Twilight. Yes, I feel like invisibility has a lot of perks, whereas being deformed kind of don't. So, that would be my answer. And we're going to move on to the review of The Invisible Man. The Invisible Man, which was written in 1933. This is also played by Claude Rains, which I thought did a incredible movie, or an incredible job in this movie. I really did love the look of the Invisible Man from when he first enters that little brothel house where he's all like wrapped up, real skinny, has the black trench coat. I thought it looked really badass. I would love to have a figure, like an action figure of his. And I just thought that this was such a interesting movie from beginning to end. He was very misunderstood. He did did a concoction to where it turned him completely invisible. And at first he was pretty, okay with it, pretty excited about it. But when he couldn't turn back, he went mad trying to find a way. And all he wanted was some peace and quiet just so he can do his work. But that really annoying ass woman in the beginning who owns the brothel was all the time running up there, getting all in his business because he looked the way he did. And I just felt like she was just so annoying. I wanted to strangle that woman myself. But The Invisible Man was a very good movie. Uh, Personally, I didn't feel like it was scary, but there were a lot of scenes that were pretty grotesque. Like, I feel like this movie for 1933 had one of the best graphic details in the movie. For example, the way they made him look invisible and everything, I thought that they did that really good. Also, the scene where he ties up that guy and lifts him up and puts him back in the truck. I was like, wow, I was really actually impressed with the way they did it, because this is 1933. This ain't 2018 where you can, you know, do anything you want in film. They really had to focus and spend a lot of time getting those kind of scenes down to the T. But I thought that the two craziest scenes was when he killed everyone on that train, where he pulled the lever and the train went over that hill, where he tied the guy up, put him in the vehicle, run the vehicle off the hill with it exploding and stuff. And I just felt that like this was the most advanced horror movie in that time period. Like, this is some future stuff that horror movie should be like, instead of in 1933, is what I'm trying to say. But what do you guys think? Do you guys like this movie? If you have not seen the Claude Rains The Invisible Man, I would definitely give it a shot, because it was really good. I love his laugh in the movie too. I think he had a really like evil laugh. But in all honesty, I really like the Kevin Bacon version of The Invisible Man a lot better. But those two movies completely split my opinion of The Invisible Man being a monster. In this movie, at the very end, he was dying. He got shot by the cop. And as he's dying, he just wanted to see the love of his life, wanted to be visible again. And when he died, he was able to be seen once again. I feel like he was very misunderstood, drove insane, because, I mean, how would we act? Like, if one day we were like, oh, I wonder if we can come up with something that could turn us invisible for a few minutes, and you took it and you were invisible the rest of your life. Like, we would all kind of panic and be like, I gotta focus, I gotta figure out how I can reverse this. And whenever people are getting in your way, of course you're naturally gonna get pissed and maybe not slaughter thousands, but at least, you know, knock off a few here and there. That sounds pretty bad. But Kevin Bacon's version of The Invisible Man is fucked up. Fucked up. Kevin Bacon, you need to watch that movie, because that movie is sick and twisted. He like kills animals in it. He's killed several people, and he did it for the fun of it. Like, I feel like that Invisible Man is way more twisted than this one. So yeah, that movie, Kevin Bacon's version, is your classic horror monster for The Invisible Man. But as far as this version goes, I wouldn't really consider him a monster at all. But what do you guys think? We'll see what you guys have been saying. I'll try to interact with you guys a little more. I wonder if I can get rid of this. I can. There we go. You're saying being invisible is fun. How can you act if you're invisible? Just like Darkman. It really is a classic. Sad. It's like poking a bear with a stick, driving someone to being mad. I think I've watched that version before. Yeah, the Kevin Bacon one was pretty grotesque. My next question to you guys is, could you guys be quiet long enough to survive? For one example, if you've seen Saw, I believe it was Saw 6 or 5. One of those. No, it was... I want to say Saw 4. I want to say Saw 4, but I might be wrong. Do you remember that one where the woman's hair is all... or the woman's in these 3 spikes? The one that's pointing at both her eyes and her mouth, and the guy has to fish a key out of her throat. All she had to do was be quiet, and they could have survived. But she wasn't. She was like, and she ended up getting killed. Could you guys think you could be quiet long enough to survive? What if you're put in a world or a situation like Anne Frank, where you have to be quiet? I know El Manuel would die quickly. No, I'm just kidding. Even him said nope. He just straight up no. Well, the reason why I'm bringing it up is because this right here, my movie review on A Quiet Place. This is definitely a standalone game changer of a horror movie. A Quiet Place was one of the first movies I've ever been in a theater before, and it was so quiet you can hear like a piece of popcorn hit the floor. Please, no spoilers. I will not spoil any bad details. I'm just going to tell the gist of it. But I'm just saying, when I was in theaters, it was so quiet you can hear probably popcorn hit the floor from like down below, or if you're sitting down below you can hear it from behind you. It was super, super quiet. Like, A Quiet Place was the theater. But the whole movie is silent. Like, not the whole movie, there is sound in it, but throughout the whole movie, the scariest scenes in it was due to noise. And I feel like the director did such a beautiful job. This is like a whole different genre of horror in itself. But what really impressed me was the teenager in this movie is actually deaf in real life. She plays this deaf girl in the movie, so it's kind of hard for her to survive in this kind of world, which being deaf herself, it's, she couldn't hear or anything like that. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword, but in this movie, if you make any noise whatsoever, you die, basically. So, well, you don't die like immediately, like, you don't go, oh shit, and then die. No, these things are hunting people, and they do whenever they hear any kind of noise. But I would highly, highly recommend you guys to watch this movie. This movie I'm going to consider as one of a very good classic horror movies, because I personally feel like it was that good. I think the ending is just badass as can be. I think it's one of the coolest badass movies ever. But, like I said, I'm not going to give away anything about it. It is new, it just came out, so if I had to rate these movies, I would give this Phantom of the Opera a 1 star, just because it was just so boring and long, I couldn't really get into it that well. So I'm going to definitely try to find a different version of that. The Invisible Man will get an 8 out of 10 because it was really, really good. And then this will get a 10 out of 10 for me, because it was very good. But, yeah, I've watched interviews with the cast, and that's when I've realized the main teenage girl was actually deaf in real life. So that's kind of interesting how they got her to actually play in a horror movie like that. And the actor himself, the main dad actor, he was talking about how intense the whole movie actually is because of how quiet the whole movie is. And then when you hear that first noise in the whole movie, you immediately like tense up. You're like, oh shit. Which that's how I felt when I was watching it. Everyone in the theater was just, you didn't hear chit chat. You didn't hear like, nothing like that. I mean, everyone was dead silent watching this film, and that was the very first time I ever experienced that. So yeah, definitely watch A Quiet Place. And if I had to be quiet, I feel like I could survive, because I'm normally like a quiet person. I don't really talk that much in real life. Like, for my YouTube channel, I do talk quite a bit, but in real life, I'm actually a pretty quiet person, so I feel like I could last at least a little bit. That's pretty much the gist of the horror vlog. I hope you guys enjoyed the Horror Classic Monster Week. If you have not seen the other two parts to it, please go back and watch it, because all three parts are, I feel like, is one of the best that I've ever done in horror vlogs. Like, out of my whole entire 26 episode horror vlog saga, I feel like the past 3 episodes have been one of my best. And yeah, I'm not a perfect being. I don't edit my videos. I make mistakes like everyone else. But thank you guys so much for joining me. And I got one last thing to say. And I said, we're talking about, back in the day, the classics, Invisible Man, Dracula, all that. I believe that horror movies today, in 2018, this very day, I feel like horror movies has actually gotten better. If you go back to like 2016, 2017, the age of the paranormal activity kind of stuff, I feel like they've milked that cow dry. And some of the movies are actually really good. And like the movie Annabelle Creation, that's one of the best ones. The Conjurings are one of the best ones. But paranormal stuff has been rapping it out left and right. And today's time, they've been coming out with so many excellent horror movies, like A Quiet Place, like Hereditary. I've heard nothing but good things for Hereditary. And just everything that's been coming out here lately, like the movie Unsane, I've heard very good things about it. I just feel like horror movies in today's time are starting to get a lot better than what they have been the past few years. Do you guys feel like they will ever be just as great as back in the day? Probably not, because of the nostalgia, but given the story, I feel like they can come out with... I mean, look at all that they have come out that I would consider classics. Don't Breathe is one of the great, excellent classics. Quiet Place, I feel, is a great classic. I'm sure there's more, I just haven't seen them that much. Because I haven't really been watching a lot of horror movies lately. I've mostly been like gaming and reading. But my last question for you guys to think about and comment below is, we still have room to grow. We all do, and especially us creators, the people who love to create these horror movies, who have these ideas, that want to go out there and chase them. Even if you haven't wrote a book yet or anything like that, if you're one of the few in the future that's going to create a new horror classic, what do you guys feel that future creators should do with their novels or movies? What do you think they should go for? I mean, think about it, guys. Horror movies all started back in 1889. And ever since 1889, they've been coming out with idea after idea. I sounded really retarded there. It's been coming up with ideas after ideas. Like, there's nothing new. There's nothing hardly that we haven't already seen before. Do you feel like horror, the whole genre itself, is going to eventually die? I mean, there's only so much you can come up with, and they've came up with everything. Killer Poop. They've come up with Killer Tomatoes, Killer Donuts. I mean, they're just literally left and right picking things. You name it, it's probably already been a horror movie. Cut down the jump scares and crank up the atmosphere is what Isaac says. And I do agree. Jump scares are good when done right, but you have to be pulled into the horror movie. You have to be, like, you have to put yourself into the film and just feel the fear. I mean, yeah, jump scare, you'll be like, oh shit. And for the few seconds leading up to the jump scare, it is atmosphere that's pulling you to where you go, oh shit, when the jump scare happens. But you have to have that atmosphere. Yes, Monstered, that's what it's called. Yeah, Monstered is a killer, like, big pile of shit, apparently. I have not seen this movie, but Spooks highly recommends it. But yeah, they've come up with everything. Like, do you feel like horror is eventually going to die out? I feel like there's still a lot more room to grow. And I feel like as a creator, we can still go back and take these classic films, but turn them into something new. And I like how they do that with certain things. Like some of the vampire movies they're coming out with, like when they came out with the remake of Let Me In, or Let the Right One In, that was really well done. And I just feel like we do have a lot more room to grow. But what do you guys think? Do you guys feel like horror movies could get better? Do you feel like they, like if you had a message to future creators, like future movie makers, what would you say? The number one thing I would say is less CGI and more actual man-made props. Like if you're going to create a monster for your movie, I want that monster to be realistic. I don't want some full CGI monster chasing these teenagers. I want an actual man-made eye dangling from the head kind of thing. So that would be my one thing I'd say to movie creators. As far as novelists go, the details, man. Don't spare the details. But anyway, I'm Z3KO Trinity. Thank you guys for joining my horror vlog. It's been fun. Chucky, you got anything you wanna add?
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Now the first thing we gotta do is get me out of this body once and for all.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. Oh, and one last thing. This doesn't relate to any horror movies or not, but I got my girlfriend a Labyrinth action figure of the Goblin King. The Goblin King! It's a Todd McFarlane toy. That's what it looks like if you could display it with the mask, and it has the globe and everything like that. Very detailed figure. It's one of our favorite movies is The Labyrinth, so I surprised her today with the figure itself. So yeah, thank you guys so much for joining. I'm Z3KO Trinity. Thanks everyone, Spooks, Isaac, just thank you all for joining. And I hope to see you guys in the next episode of the horror vlog. And please, you can give me some ideas. I'm pretty sure I already know what I'm going to do for the next horror vlog. But I want you guys to give me some ideas in the comment section below, just so future references. Some things I haven't touched on that you feel needs to be touched. And one last surprise announcement for the rest of you that are still watching. Tomorrow will be my very first Goosebumps Live. That's what it's called. It's called Goosebumps Live. And it's kind of like a Goosebumps vlog video. And I don't quite know 100% the way I want to go with it. But I'm going to go live. And I'm going to be discussing nothing but Welcome to Dead House, since that's the very first book that R.L. Stine wrote, and Goosebumps. So I hope you guys join me tomorrow. I'm probably going to do it around the same time as I did today. So that's something huge to look forward to. And if you guys watch that video, comment below and let me know something that I could do differently, and will help that whole series grow. Because the way I'm thinking it, there's like 62 original books. We can have 62 episodes of Goosebumps Live with talking about each and every book / episode. So I hope you guys will be joining. I will, if you can't tell, I love The Haunting Hour. The Haunting Hour is actually very good. I've been a huge fan of R.L. Stine all my life. I've never read Fear Street though, and I've always heard good things about Fear Street. But I've been there with Goosebumps ever since it first came out. Like I was right there when they first came on TV in 1995. I was just totally right there every episode. But yeah, I watched it. I watched what's that one? The Haunted Key or The Nightmare Room, something like that. They came out with that next, and then they came out with the Haunting Hour, something like that. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. C3KO Trinity, and I guess let me get the proper filter. Let me get the right filter for you guys. There we go.
A true classic never goes out of style. I'll be back. I always come back.
I'll see you guys in the next video. Deuces, motherfuckers.